The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. As Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside by themselves and said to them on the way, "Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn him to death and hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and scourged and crucified, and he will be raised on the third day." Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee approached Jesus with her sons and did him homage, wishing to ask him for something. He said to her, "What do you wish?" She answered him, "Command that these 2 sons of mine sit, one at your right and the other at your left, in your kingdom." Jesus said in reply, "You do not know what you are asking. Can you drink the chalice that I am going to drink?" They said to him, "We can." He replied, "My chalice you will indeed drink, but to sit at my right and at my left, this is not mine to give, but is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." When the 10 heard this, they became indignant at the 2 brothers. But Jesus summoned them and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and the great ones make their authority over them felt. But it shall not be so among you. Rather, whoever wishes to be great among you shall be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. Just so the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." The Gospel of the Lord. Yeah, I don't know what the what your reaction to the passage is. It's tough. I mean, Jesus is making his way to Jerusalem. He's making his way to the cross. He's saying that to the disciples, and they don't understand, of course. I mean, they don't understand because they're trapped in their own mind on the whole thing. So they think that their journey to Jerusalem is, to see Jesus installed as king. And it is, but not in the way that they imagine or plan. And we can see that, almost at every turn as we go. So there's this kind of, it's for me anyway, I don't know, my response is kind of that it's disheartening, like Jesus is attempting to communicate himself to his friends, to his associates, right, to the people that are closest to him. And there's a real disconnect there. I mean, because of course there was always going to be this disconnect, but he has spent some time with them already to this point. We're 20 chapters into this, the Gospel of Matthew, and there doesn't seem to be much movement on the part of the disciples that they're coming around to see what Jesus is actually saying. But of course, they have no conception at all that the Messiah, that the King intends to go to his death, and that is in fact the plan. It's not a messy accident, right? It's not a defeat. Like you run into battle and you die, that's a defeat. But it's not a defeat for him. This is the way that he is going to accomplish his victory. So, and even there, I think this is where perhaps my being disheartened hearing this passage also kind of takes root, is the question of whether or not we as a people have been I don't know. I don't want to say have learned anything in 2,000 years, but you know what I mean. It's like, where are we? Are we still experiencing disconnect for ourselves in terms of what happened here and what Jesus intends to accomplish now? This is the challenge, I think, that at least I think we face it. I think we face it together. Because what Jesus is proposing is something of a, it's a radical departure from what was expected. But the challenge then is now, like, is this still a radical departure from the expected? And I think for us it probably is, and that is kind of disheartening. We have to do better to take this on for ourselves and see it through to its proper conclusion, with Jesus again leading, with Jesus at the head. So what do I mean by that? I mean that we have to take what he says there at the end seriously. We have to be able to confront like where our story is in conflict with his story, and we have to let Jesus win. We have to let him win out in terms of assenting to his agenda and his implementation of it, even if it costs us, right? Even if it means that we have to let go of our own agenda and follow him in trust, in wholehearted trust. But this is it. What's our concept of power? What do we think? Again, like I ask this every now and again, like, who's the most powerful person in the world? I don't know, right? It's a thought experiment. I mean, there are people kind of pop up in my head, right? The most powerful person in the world. But how do we think of power? We think of power as people at the top of multinational corporations, or the head of politics, presidents and prime ministers and the like. Is that what we think? I mean, certainly they have authority. They have God-given authority, and God is always shaping them for his purposes, and directing them according to his purposes. But that's a very blurry picture. But what about his saints? What about God's saints? What about the people who give themselves totally to Jesus? And so perhaps don't look like the most powerful people in the world, but are making the most progress in turning the world right side up. They're rejecting the allure of the way the world sees it: money, power, pleasure, prestige, honor, whatever it may be. And they're living totally for God. They're living this out. The greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. And this is it. This is Jesus leading the way. But where do we find ourselves here? Perhaps even somewhere between where James and John are, and I should say, shouldn't just throw them under the bus, because it's really everybody. The disciples are not happy when they hear about it. They become indignant at the two brothers. They become indignant at two brothers because they were the ones who asked first, so they might have a way in. They don't want them to be out in front of them, right? So they're all caught up in this same thing, just as Jesus has said, this is what we're going to do. And now right away, well, we want to be first. We want to be first. I want to be best. I want the most. I want more power. I want more, whatever it is. Are we there? We are there. We are there. We should not be there. No, our lives need to look more and more like the life of Jesus. That's why he's called you here, so that your life would look more like his. And by the way, if you're trying to do it on your own strength, you're going to fail. You don't have the strength to do it. It's a cooperation, right? It's Jesus breathing his life into you, giving you his body and blood to eat, so that you can become more like him. You're sustained with the strength of his own life of love to become more like him, which is total service of God, right? It's this pouring ourselves out totally for God in his service, and doing so, loving the world to life, loving the people around us with the strength of his love. That's what we're doing. We ought not have our eye on money, power, pleasure, prestige, honor, whatever those things are. We ought not have our eye on them. We ought to have our eye on Jesus. He's up ahead. He's making the way, but he's giving us the wherewithal and the strength to follow now after him.